LGB. 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 LGB.
They say LGB everywhere I go. LGB. What it means, I don't know. LGB. Whatever it is. LGB. Kamala, help me, please. Please.
Alrighty then.
Thank you. LGB.
That's let's go, Brandon. Right?
LGB.
This means let's go, Brandon.
No. LGB.
Sounds like let's go, Brandon. I guess.
LGB. All right. Let's go, Brandon.
I am Cornholio.
Chant LGB. Right wing and left wing. LGB. Go, you know the thing. LGB. If you don't sing that back. LGB. And you ain't black. LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
FJB. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm Joe Biden, and I forgot this message.
Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas, this March 27th, 2024 at 9:03 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And today I would like to get everybody up to speed on what the sociosexual hierarchy is. So we're going to start with Sigma Game, and then we're going to do a few more Sigma Game articles. And then we're going to wrap up the show. Before we begin, I just want to remind everybody that this show is brought to you by Epic Minerals. One of these days, this thing is going to resolve properly. But the brand name is right there, Epic Minerals, and it's my brand, epicminerals.net. Get the heavy metals out of your system. It's in the air. It's in the food. It's in your injections. It's in your water. Get it out. The best way to get it out is a zeolite. This particular one is called clinoptilite, and it binds to heavy metals, causing it to pass right through your system as normal waste, in this case, urine. And then it remineralizes you with fulvic and humic acid, providing you with micronutrients that your tissues are either unable to absorb or are unavailable due to today's strip farming techniques. Go to www.epicminerals.net. Use promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands. You can also go to epicthreads.tv and get these gorgeous handcrafted soaps, artisan soaps, made by patriots, for patriots, members of this community. We have lemongrass with poppy seed. They're just gorgeous, guys. You can't do better than the soaps made by patriots for patriots. So get your artisan soaps at epicthreads.tv. You can also get the fulvic and humic acid with zeolite there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started on today's topic, the sociosexual hierarchy, the original definitions of the SSH profiles by Vox Day. Alpha. The alpha is the tall, good-looking guy who is the center of both male and female attention. The classic star of the football team who is dating the prettiest cheerleader. The successful business executive with the beautiful, stylish, blonde, size 0 wife. All the women are attracted to him, while all the men want to be him, or at least be his friend. At a social gathering like a party, he's usually the loud, charismatic guy telling self-flattering stories to a group of top-tier women who are listening with interest. However, alphas are only interested in women to the extent that they exist for the alpha's gratification, physical and psychological. They are actually more concerned with their overall group status. Bravo. Bravos are the good-looking guys who aren't as uniformly attractive or socially dominant as the alpha, but are nevertheless confident, attractive to women, and do well with them. At the party, they're the loud guy's friends who showed up with the alcohol and who are flirting with the Tier 1 women and cheerfully pairing up with the Tier 2 women. Bravos tend to genuinely like women and view them in a somewhat optimistic manner, but they don't have a lot of illusions about them either. Bravos tend to be happy, secure in themselves, and are up for anything their alpha wants to do. When they marry, it is not infrequently to a woman who was one of the alpha's former girlfriends. Delta, the normal guy. Deltas are the great majority of men. They can't attract the most attractive women, so they usually aim for the second-tier women with very limited success and stubbornly resist paying attention to all of the third-tier women who are comfortably in their league. This is ironic because deltas would almost always be happier with their closest female equivalents. When a delta does manage to land a second-tier woman, he is constantly afraid that she will lose interest in him and will, not infrequently, drive her into the very loss of interest he fears by this non-stop dancing of attendance upon her. In a social setting, the deltas are the men clustered together in groups, each of them making an occasional foray towards various small gaggles of women, before beating a hasty retreat when direct eye contact and engaged responses are not forthcoming. Deltas tend to put the female sex on pedestals and have overly optimistic expectations of them. If a man rhapsodizes about his better half or is an inveterate white knight, he is almost certainly a delta. Deltas like women, but find them mysterious, confusing, and are sometimes secretly a little afraid of them. Gamma. The introspective, the unusual, the unattractive, and all too often the bitter. Gammas are often intelligent, usually unsuccessful with women, and not uncommonly all but invisible to them. The gamma alternates between placing women on pedestals and hating the entire sex. This mostly depends upon whether an attractive woman happened to notice his existence or not that day. Too introspective for their own good, gammas are the men who obsess over individual women for extended periods of time and supply the ranks of stalkers, psycho-jealous ex-boyfriends, and the authors of excruciatingly romantic rhyming doggerel. In the unlikely event they are at the party, they are probably in the corner muttering darkly about the behavior of everyone else there, sometimes to themselves. Gammas tend to have a worship-hate relationship with women, the current direction of which is directly tied to their present situation. However, to the gamma, women are However, gammas are sexual rejects, not social rejects. Omega, the truly unfortunate. Omegas are the social losers who were never in the game, sometimes creepy, sometimes damaged, often clueless, always undesirable. They're not at the party. It would never have crossed anyone's mind to invite them in the first place. Omegas are either totally indifferent to women or hate them with a borderline homicidal fury. Sigma, the outsider who doesn't play the social game, but manages to win at it anyhow. The Sigma is hated by alphas, because Sigmas are the only men who don't accept or at least acknowledge, however grudgingly, their social dominance. Everyone else is vaguely confused by them. In a social situation, the Sigma is the man who stops in briefly to say hello to a few friends. He's accompanied by a Tier 1 girl that no one has ever seen before. Sigmas like women, but tend to be contemptuous of them. Sigmas are usually considered to be strange but cool. Gammas often like to think that they are sigmas, failing to understand that sigmas are not social rejects. Sigmas are at the top of the social hierarchy, despite their refusal to play by its rules. Lambda. Those men who have quite literally no interest in conventional male-female sexual relations. They clearly have their own hierarchy of sorts, but I can't say that I know much about it other than it appears to somehow involve youth, free weights, and mustaches. Now, it is important to keep in mind that it serves absolutely no purpose to identify yourself in some manner that you think is better or higher up the hierarchy. No one cares what you think you are. And your opinion about your place in the social hierarchy is probably the opinion that matters least. There is no good or bad here. There is only what happens to be observable in social interaction. Consider. Alphas seemingly rule the roost, and yet they live in a world of constant conflict and status testing. Sigmas usually acquired their outsider status the hard way. One seldom becomes immune to the social hierarchy by virtue of mass popularity in one's childhood. Bravos actually have it pretty good. But the important thing to keep in mind is that you can't improve your chances of success in the social game if you begin by attempting to deceive yourself as to where you stand vis-a-vis everyone else around you. All right, next, the Cognitive Dissonance Challenge. Paul, P-O-L, 4chan, then 8chan, now 8kun, explains what men are up against today by Vox Day. Imagine being raised on 40 hours a week of girl boss cartoons from Disney, Warner, Nickelodeon, etc. Every situation, she's better than the boys, more confident, more capable. With ease, she can beat the men at anything they do. The men are buffoons who fumble over themselves arrogantly, trying to do what she does naturally. She's confident, talks down to every guy around her, smirks when they don't believe in her. Then she just wins. Never even so much as takes a single beating. You're smarter. You're really more capable. You're a boss girl. Go out and win at life. Don't need a man. Life's an adventure. Go live it. Then, 20 seconds after being thrust into a situation that isn't controlled by Globo Homo, she's immediately outwitted, outperformed, outclassed in every fucking way. She went and shaved the side of her head, and no guy wants anything to do with her now. All those tats to make herself into that badass character she saw herself as, and the tough anti-hero guy she thought she'd match wits with never showed up. Now she realizes she can't even match wits with the fat, nerdy guy who wants to go to film school. She can't run as fast or even lift half as much weight as her best friend's twink boyfriend. She tried to go for her master's in comp sci, but the guys were busy writing shaders for CUDA scores or implementing low-level hardware drivers, and her great idea was to make a new social media platform with a twist, so she dropped out immediately. Now she's working some shit office job where the male intern has had to help her out of simple situations that confuse her, and to top it all off, she's slowly admitting that she wishes she'd stuck with Josh, who's now a dad, and looks really happy in all those pictures with his 5 years younger, stay-at-home wife. Captioned here is a picture of the cast of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Captioned, Buffy was the original girl boss, and she died a lot. I think she died twice. Now, if you're a bitter, low-status male, you might, not unreasonably, feel the temptation to feel a strong sense of schadenfreude. After all, these are the sort of young women who rejected you, who rolled their eyes at you, who didn't consider you worthy of them. Don't judge them too harshly. Just as you were lied about and lied to about what would make you successful and what would make you more attractive to the opposite sex, they were deceived even more comprehensively than you can possibly comprehend. So don't be afraid to challenge her. Speak the truth without hesitation or fear. Just as you managed to eventually break through Clown World's lies, she can too. It's not necessarily too late for either of you. The challenge is to help those young men and women who are facing the challenge of rectifying the cognitive dissonance they are experiencing between what they were told and what they can see for themselves. Next, when the rage volcano erupts, in which we are provided an example of one aspect of the gamma's behavioral pattern. One thing that can be very hard to believe or to accept is the extent to which a gamma in a rage spiral will continue to double down again and again until he reaches absolute bottom in the eyes of his local hierarchy. I've witnessed this on sports teams, on college campuses, in corporate offices, in social settings, and of course on the internet. But it's normal behavior for gammas, and although they don't exhibit it often, they will, sooner or later, be triggered into erupting in a rage volcano, often by something that seems so minor to everyone else that it can even obscure the direct causal relationship between the trigger and the behavior. This is why it's always vital either to eject or carefully ring-fence the gammas in your organization to prevent them from doing significant damage when, not if, they are triggered into a rage spiral. This is absolutely vital, and I'm not exaggerating the importance of doing this because in the past 6 years, I've ejected 2 gammas showing signs of instability from 2 different projects. One of them subsequently turned out to be literally murderous and killed his wife in rage. So, it probably won't surprise those of you who witnessed Elwin Ransom's public performance in the comments to yesterday's post, we'll look at that in a minute, that his banning from Sigma game was not the end of the story, as 11 minutes later, I received the following email. The commenter on your Sigma game thread that you just banned was May. I have been a reader for close to 2 decades and subscriber to both Castalia's series since they started. No longer. Now, obviously, it's totally fine if a customer wants to stop buying from a company whose products he no longer wants. That's not a problem. Anyone is perfectly within his rights to stop buying goods or purchasing services for any reason at all. But step back and think about how strange this reaction is when it's described in general terms. Because the gamma thinks he should not have been held accountable to the rules he was clearly violating on one internet site. He's going to stop purchasing goods and or services he has hitherto valued from an entirely different company that happens to be connected in some way to the individual responsible for the site that banned him for violating the rules. In other words, the gamma makes everything personal. Absolutely everything. Don't ever forget that. It may not be personal to you. You may not even see how it possibly could be personal in any way whatsoever, but to the gamma, you are now his personal Voldemort, Sauron, and General Woundwort, all rolled into one personification of pure and unmitigated evil that must be defeated at all costs. And the gamma will never, ever stop trying to expose you, discredit you, or otherwise take you down. Back when I permitted comments at Vox Populi, a gamma who had been banned for 7 years without ever once showing his face again suddenly popped up, under another name, of course, to take a rhetorical shot when he erroneously imagined his grand opportunity had finally presented itself. This shouldn't come as a surprise. Most gammas are nursing grievances and open psychological wounds that go back to junior high, if not elementary school. A 7-year grievance is nothing for the average gamma. So once you recognize that a gamma has declared you to be his enemy, no matter how absurd or convoluted the reasoning he may have required to reach that conclusion, be aware that you've made an enemy for life. Which, of course, is the real reason attractive women despise and fear these self-described nice guys, and why they so often tend to seek refuge in the self-serving alphas and sigmas, whom they know perfectly well don't care very much about them, because while an alpha may break your heart, a rejected gamma may well break your skull with a hammer. Men don't fear gammas, but women do, and rightly so. The sociosexual hierarchy is more than just a powerful tool for making sense of your romantic life, leading a project, or managing an office. It can literally save your life. Also, as I pointed out at voxday.net, being a longtime reader, being a supporter, being a subscriber, being a backer, or even being your biggest fan cuts absolutely no ice with me. In fact, to the contrary, if you are any of those things, then you have been here long enough to know that I have higher expectations of you than I do of some random drive-by commenter. So please behave accordingly and with due regard to your fellow commentators. Sorry, I meant commenters. Next, diffusing the ticking rage bomb. How an alpha confronts a gamma without setting off fireworks. In the aftermath of the latest gamma meltdown, a commenter points out an old video that is a masterclass in how an alpha calmly handles a petty public challenge from a gamma who is absolutely outmatched in every way.
That's, now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Come here. Come here. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Not very funny. Can you please?
No, it's okay. No, wait a second. What's so funny about that? It's ridiculous. Do you like making less of people? Is that you like doing mean things? That's really. Hey, no. Don't run away. Don't run away. No, I don't care. That's incredibly rude. I'm here giving you an interview and answering your questions, and you do something really nasty. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. Well, you know what? You're a jerk.
So you cameras off there.
Come closer. Be ashamed of yourself. Amazing.
It's a masterclass in frame. Grabbing the guy's hand, the eye lock, not a wasted word, focused and on point. In my view, the pivotal line is, what's so funny about that? It begins the reversal of frame from the prankster. Based on this, we can propose a method for dealing with confrontational gamma behavior, which can be used aggressively or subtly, depending on the situation. 1. Identify the false premise or posture that the gamma is relying on to preset the interaction and cause a presumption by the group in his favor. 2. Swiftly destroy that premise in the most direct way possible. The gamma relies on the premise to create authority along with the element of surprise. 3. Declare victory over the defeated premise and redirect. I'd love to see your analysis of it and what a sigma would do. I really have nothing to add to what he's already correctly observed, except to say that I have seen a few people mistakenly thinking that Tom Cruise is a sigma. While he may have played a Sigma or two on screen, there is no question about his true sociosexual hierarchy profile, as he is at the very top of not one, but two very large and influential hierarchies, and despite his various quirks and idiosyncrasies, he is, by all accounts, well loved by his longtime collaborators, colleagues, and subordinates. Of course, that may be marketing spin and PR, but the fact is that he is still working professionally with the same partners from 30 years ago. It tends to support those reports. Cruz isn't simply an actor. He's literally calling the shots, raising the money, and deeply involved in running the show, and in fact appears to be one of the only men in Hollywood who still knows how to make an action blockbuster. He's loyal to his people. He insisted that the ailing Val Kilmer appear in the second Top Gun film and then gave him an integral role and a scene that very nearly stole the film. He is an odd duck, and he definitely has an unpredictable side to him, but he is not an outsider, and he is obviously quite comfortable operating within his hierarchies. So he's definitely an alpha. It's because he's an alpha who is very accustomed to dealing with regular provocations from gammas who are part of his team and for whom he feels responsible, that he handles the situation so easily and puts the gamma back in his proper place so effortlessly without setting off any pyrotechnics. He could have simply ordered the gamma crushed by others in a dozen different ways, but instead he handled it himself and publicly demonstrated his psychological superiority and self-discipline for everyone to see. As for the question about what a Sigma would do, well, I should think that is entirely obvious to anyone who has been reading Sigma Games since its inception. I will leave it to you, dear readers, to debate the topic before adding an update in which I will provide the definitive answer. Update. One useful thing we've learned from this exercise is that it is as difficult for those within the hierarchy to understand the Sigma mindset as it is for those outside the hierarchy to understand the normal male perspective. The correct answer: the Sigma would never have been there in the first place, and no amount of rationalizations about how he needed to be there for his job, or he was selling a movie, or anything else are even remotely relevant. I very much doubt you can guess how many interviews and public marketing opportunities I have turned down in the last 30 years within an order of magnitude. Let me put it this way. My band had a recording contract, 2 Billboard Top 40 Club chart hits, a video on Spanish MTV, music licensed in a Super Nintendo game, and we refused to go on the US and European tours that our label wanted to fund because I was more interested in developing my first computer game. And this, despite our having an effective live show that blew away the crowd at both First Avenue and Glam Slam. The two things one can reasonably expect a Sigma to show up for are A, his own wedding, and B, his own funeral. Everything else is far more optional than you would likely believe. I chuckled when they said how a Sigma would handle this. Are you freaking kidding me? A Sigma would be off doing Sigma shit. Next, self-portrait of a gamma, in which a man's sociosexual hierarchy status is conclusively identified. In his paper exposing Friedrich Nietzsche as a fraud, Miles Mathis confirmed what I had previously observed concerning his, Miles Mathis's, sociosexual status. I have emphasized the key phrase quoted below. A man who asserts himself is a pig, and a man who doesn't is a wimp. So you can't win. She can't win, and she never did, ending up alone begging for death. You will say I am alone at 60, so I must have done the same thing. No, since I was perfectly willing to share power with a woman, I just never met a woman who was anywhere near my equal, who had time for me or would treat me well. In general, they were all too into themselves to even notice I existed. Despite always having a lot of ambition and a lot of irons in the fire, I have always had plenty of time for a woman and a relationship. It was a very high priority. The reverse has not been true. For me, it was chercher la femme. But for them, it was also chercher la femme, the femme being themselves. And to be fair, there were a couple who slipped through my hands for what are mysterious reasons. We all have our Marikas and Alexandras, who we look back on as what-ifs, those who came and went before we even had time to assess them. For that reason, I am pretty sure this was my destiny, a destiny I now accept. I do believe in free will, and I don't believe in predestination, but I do believe in destiny, which isn't quite the same. Nothing is preordained, and it could have very easily happened otherwise. I could have failed. And I think the odds were actually very good I would fail, but this was my destiny, in that it was what I was put here to do. There was no guarantee I would do it, but the road was open if I should do it. The help was there if I asked for it, and there may be some amount of steering going on as well, though I don't think it amounts to predestination. It is still up to us to agree to be steered or not, in each case, especially in my case, where I know I am being steered." End quote. They were all too into themselves to even notice I existed. That single line might well serve as the despairing heart's cry of the Gamma male. First, it's not even remotely surprising that Mathis idolized Nietzsche, as he admits at the beginning of the expose. If there is one reliable sign of having strong Gamma tendencies, it's harboring a high regard for that particular German philosopher. And yes, we're looking right at you, Jordan B. Peterson. Second, serial failure with women is the unfortunate fate that awaits every proud Gamma who habitually overrates his own sexual and marital market values. It's not that women are too into themselves to notice him. It's that he's aiming far too high. The women he is pursuing simply aren't buying what he has to offer. Now, Miles is no midwit. For all his intellectual grandiosity, he is legitimately smarter than the average observer of the human condition. But despite his observable brain power and his legitimate painter's eye, he lacked the self-awareness and the detachment to understand that what he valued in himself was not necessarily valued in the same way or to the same extent by the women to whom he was attracted. It's a nice painting. That's delightful. Guys, if you're just listening, I believe this is a self-portrait, and it's really good. I'm mesmerized by how good this is. Miles is not a bad-looking man. He clearly has a tremendous appreciation for female beauty and was drawn to it from a young age. He just as obviously has a strong Gamma behavioral pattern and is particularly given to grandiosity. He has the usual persecution complex, which, given his talent, is probably based in at least some degree of reality, and what appears to be an unusually powerful delusion bubble that prevents him from accepting criticism, no matter how constructive. I don't know Miles, and have only exchanged email with him once, but he strikes me as an all too typical example of the Gamma who reliably wastes his intelligence and his talent on obsessively protecting his own feelings. Miles is far more talented than I am, far more observant than I am, and he may even be a little more intelligent than me. But it is clear that he has been fundamentally crippled by his own self-obsessions. The root of his lifelong failure with women is contained in that one fatal phrase. I just never met a woman who was anywhere near my equal who had time for me. Of course he didn't. Because women are hypergamous. The only women who will ever have time for a man are those who consider him to be their superior. And remember, because value is subjective, a woman's metrics will always be different from the metrics of a man. And in most cases, they will also be opaque to him. Ooh, look at this. Look at this painting of a woman. Dude, I have got to look at more of this dude's paintings. Okay, anyway. Miles has always had an eye for female beauty, but notice the similarity of this painting of a young woman to his own self-portrait. Let's check to see if that cleft in the chin... the cleft in the chin is covered up by a goatee. I don't know. Same. Boy, the eyes sure are the same. Well, you know, if you're a painter and you know how to paint eyes, maybe you're going to paint eyes the same way. But this is really good. The man who seeks a woman who is equal is not looking for a woman. He is merely a narcissist seeking the opportunity to stare at himself in a mirror. And I'm a fan of Miles Mathis's work in a big way. MilesWMathis.com. He exposes lots of things that are totally fake and gay. He also has in my opinion, unfortunate tendency to use Jewishness as a way to skip to the conclusion. And it doesn't work for me. But it doesn't mean that his stuff is not constantly useful. And finally, fear of a sigma. Why sigmas always move on. A reader writes about the sudden and unexpected ejection of a sigma from his organization. I am a member of an organization where, at the moment, the leadership role is occupied by a Gamma/Delta. I'm not entirely sure, but leaning more towards Gamma. They just sacked a friend of mine who, according to me, is a Sigma. He's a tall and naturally muscular guy, popular with women, doesn't care about women really, etc. He got sacked without any prior warning, and based on what he was told, it was because they had a bad feeling. When asked about specifics, they didn't give any, and he was talking with Vice Chief a day later. He gave one reason, but again, not a good one, not something that couldn't have been fixed with a reprimand or a conversation. However, as the sacking became common knowledge, the leadership, well, they're on the edge now. Suddenly, this institution feels like Soviet Union in the wink of an eye. There's this feeling that anything might happen, that anyone could be sacked, etc. Like we had an evening out, and as I am the Sigma's friend, the vice chief was carefully observing me with a feeling of discomfort. Even my jokes were laughed at with a smell of nerves. Life is hard without alpha leadership. The problem isn't necessarily the absence of an alpha leader. The bad feeling that was cited was nothing more than the discomfort that is customarily caused to others by the presence of a Sigma in the organization. Sigmas not only do not trust others, they are also not very much trusted by others. And for good reason on both sides. Alphas view Sigmas as possible challengers. Bravos are irritated by them. Deltas find them to be alien and confusing, and Gammas simultaneously hate, fear, and envy them. Sigmas know people will eventually turn on them, and usually for reasons that have nothing to do with their own behavior. One, inexplicable and sudden ejection for failure to be regarded as a team player is an absolutely normal experience for every Sigma. I can't even keep track of the number of organizations that wanted me to leave for one reason or another, almost always for some trivial excuse that could have been more reasonably applied in spades to many other individuals in the organization. It always feels as if organizations either want me to lead them or leave them with very little in between. I usually opt for the latter. In the most extreme example, the SFWA board even went to the Science Fiction Writers of America board even went to the trouble of compiling a massive report and announcing a fake expulsion to the media in a press release for something that was not a violation of its rules when A, it did not have the power to expel any member, B, the required vote of the complete membership was never held, and C, it never expelled or even tried to expel any of the convicted pedophiles who belonged to the organization before or since. Self-awareness and experience are why the Sigma abandons people and organizations alike with such complete equanimity. It's not that he is attempting to leave before he's pushed out, merely that he knows his eventual departure is only a matter of time, so his attachment to the organization and its members is essentially non-existent. And that level of detachment is simply unacceptable to certain members of the organization, particularly Bravos, as well as any Deltas or Gammas who have somehow found themselves in positions of leadership. So, as in the situation related by the reader, almost any pretext will do as an excuse to eject the Sigma from the organization once he has begun to make the leadership feel uncomfortable with him. Ironically, this gives Sigmas a significant advantage in this era of cancel culture, whereas being suddenly canceled is deeply distressing to those who are accustomed to operating within social hierarchies and derive their self-value from their status within them, often leaving them psychologically unequipped to operate on their own. The Sigma simply views the process as just another day ending in Y. One thing I probably can't explain to anyone who isn't a Sigma is the sense of relief and freedom that comes at the moment all ties to a situation are severed for whatever reason. And then second footnote. Even when there is a material cost involved and the ejection is not justified, the dissolution of those ties always comes with a distinct feeling of exhilaration. The Sigma doesn't believe that the grass is necessarily greener on the other side of the fence, but he is always aware that it just might be. First footnote. Don't do that if you want to know what it feels like thing, please. No one cares, and you're not going to fool anyone anyhow. That was in response to the first. Let's see, let me just find it. Where's that one? Sigmas know people will eventually turn on them, and for reasons that have nothing to do with their own behavior. I don't know how it feels. Okay. And then 2, Gammas, please note that the feeling of relief you got when you graduated from high school and erroneously believed that you were going to reinvent yourself as a popular person in college before taking revenge upon all your enemies is not what is being described here. Yes. That is sigmagame.substack.com, Vox Day's new blog. Learn about the sociosexual hierarchy. Go there and subscribe for money. If you do, it contributes enormously. Vox Day is also available at unauthorized.tv, which recently got its their payment processor. So nope, we can't work with you anymore. It's a French payment processor. No. We do not wish to work with you because you have the wrong sync. And so they kicked their asses out. They're trying to figure out how to get a new payment processor. So in any way that you can, go to sigmagame.substack.com. Subscribe for money if you have the means by which to do so. Help us build that parallel economy. And speaking of parallel economies, guys, you got to go to epicthreads.tv. That's the place to be right now. Epicthreads.tv. Let me show you something. This is a one-stop shop. Bam. So we have Angel Paste, a few more bottles left. Artisan soaps. Look at these things. Developed by people in this community, by threadheads, by badlanders. We've got the sweet orange soap, rosy quartz, pink grapefruit, Arabian woods bar soap, love at first sight bar soap, eternal love bar soap, lemongrass and poppy seed bar soap, sharp dressed man bar soap, galaxy quest bar soap, wild thyme and heather bar soap. Every single one of these photos was staged by my wife. Look at this shit. Isn't that amazing? She built this little tent to stick them in and took the photos herself. I'm just so impressed here. And finally, at this very same website, click on fulvic acid and bam, Zeolite Extra with fulvic and humic acids spray. This is your body's natural superhero against junk, heavy metals, all of it. Kick butt Zeolite. Check it out, guys. Epicthreads.tv. Promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching today. And let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.